Welcome back to a one-story teller where the heart meets the truth and every story echoes louder than words. Today's story isn't just about food or a restaurant. It's about respect, redemption, and the power of doing what's right when the world turns its back. Imagine a man once celebrated for serving his country, now sleeping on sidewalks, ignored by the same people he swore to protect. But fate, it doesn't always play fair, but sometimes it gives us a second shot at dignity. Tonight you'll witness what happens when a homeless veteran walks into a fine dining restaurant and the head chef suddenly stops everything. Why? Because this isn't just any man, it's the very soldier who saved the chef's life in battle years ago. What follows is a chain reaction that nobody saw coming. Viral news coverage, national support, and a movement that starts from one meal but reaches millions. So sit tight, because this isn't just a tale, it's a salute. A salute to sacrifice, to second chances, and to the unbreakable bond of brotherhood forged in war and honored in peace. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon in the heart of downtown Atlanta when a man in tattered clothes and knout military boots shuffled down Peachtree Street. He looked like a shadow of a once proud warrior, shoulders heavy with burdens the average passer, I couldn't begin to comprehend. His name was Marcus Jennings, a former U.S. Army sergeant who had served multiple tours overseas. Life after war had not been kind to him. Physical wounds had faded, but the emotional scars and trauma had driven him to the edge of society. Once respected and saluted, Marcus was now overlooked, avoided, and often pitied. His eyes scanned the streets with an odd combination of sharp awareness and weariness. With every step, he carried memories of comrades lost, missions survived, and a country he had risked everything for only to return to unemployment, homelessness, and the bitter taste of being forgotten. As he walked past glowing windows and neatly dressed diners, something caught his eye, a restaurant called Maison du Soleil. It was an upscale French-American fusion place known for its high prices and clientele of polished professionals and elite socialites. Marcus paused in front of the entrance, his reflection barely visible in the polished glass. Hunger gnawed at his stomach like a persistent parasite. He hadn't eaten in 2 days, and while he often ignored the pain, today it was unbearable. His fingers clenched a folded piece of weathered cardboard tucked inside his coat. A photograph of his daughter, taken before deployment. She was the only reason he still clung to life. She lived with her grandmother now, safe from the chaos Marcus's life had become. He had made a promise to return to her one day, not as a shell of himself, but as the father she deserved. But today he needed to survive, just one hot meal, just a moment of humanity. With cautious steps and a nervous glance around, Marcus opened the door to Maison du Soleil. The warm, aromatic air embraced him immediately, rosemary, garlic, and freshly baked bread. His senses lit up, and for a brief second he felt human again. But the moment didn't last. Heads turned. Conversations halted. Glasses were lowered mid-sip. A few gasps escaped the lips of the well-dressed patrons. The maitre d', a tall man in a sleek black suit named Andre, stepped forward swiftly, his expression tight with practiced professionalism but eyes full of judgment. "Excuse me, sir," Andre began, his tone low and cautious. "This establishment has a dress code." Marcus stood still. He didn't speak. His eyes traveled around the room, scanning the pristine linen tablecloths, glittering chandeliers, and perfectly plated meals. He saw discomfort in the eyes of the diners, some leaning back in their chairs as though afraid he might infect them with poverty. Andre continued, "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at—" Marcus interrupted, his voice rough from days without use. "I just need a meal. I don't want trouble." His tone was calm, humble even, but there was weight in his voice, years of suffering compressed into a simple plea. That voice, once used to command men in dangerous terrain, now barely had the strength to ask for a plate of food. Andre hesitated, unsure of how to proceed. Behind him, murmurs rippled through the restaurant. A young man in a suit whispered to his date, clearly uncomfortable. A middle-aged woman clutched her purse tighter. But not everyone turned away. A boy, maybe 9 or 10, at a table near the window, looked at Marcus with curiosity, not fear. His mother tried to distract him, but he kept watching. Marcus shifted awkwardly under their collective gaze. He wasn't ashamed of his condition. He had endured too much for that. But he hated being the center of attention like this. He hated being seen only as a beggar and not the man he once was. Still, he didn't back down. Hunger and desperation had a way of killing pride. Andre leaned closer and whispered, "Please, you'll need to leave before I call security." That's when something unexpected happened. From the back of the restaurant, the doors to the kitchen burst open, and a tall, broad-shouldered man in a chef's apron stepped out. His presence was commanding, his walk purposeful. He was the head chef and part owner of the restaurant, Chef Thomas T.J. Jefferson, a former Marine turned culinary genius. Chef T.J. boots thudded against the polished hardwood floor as he approached the scene. He had seen the commotion on the security monitor and immediately recognized the man at the center of it. His heart jumped. "Marcus." T.J.'s voice boomed with disbelief and emotion. The maitre d' froze mid-sentence. Marcus blinked, stunned. He looked up at the man before him, clean shaven, confident, dressed in white, but bearing the unmistakable posture of a soldier. "TJ," Marcus responded hesitantly. The room went silent again, this time for a different reason. Chef TJ stepped forward and pulled Marcus into a firm embrace. For a second, all the tension dissolved. TJ slapped him on the back, laughing in disbelief. "Man, I thought you didn't make it back." "We all made it back in pieces," Marcus said, forcing a half-smile. The diners were visibly confused now. They looked between the disheveled veteran and the respected chef, trying to connect the dots. Chef TJ turned to Andre. "This man is a war hero," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "He saved my life in Kandahar. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here cooking your damn steaks." Andre's face paled, embarrassment and regret washing over him. I didn't know." "Of course you didn't," TJ replied sharply, "because you judged him by his clothes, not his scars." TJ turned to Marcus and guided him gently toward the kitchen. "Come on, brother. I'm gonna cook you the best damn meal you've had in years." Marcus's eyes welled up, not from shame, but from gratitude. It had been a long time since someone looked at him with respect. As they walked through the dining area, something incredible began to happen. One by one, people stood up. A young woman placed her hand over her heart. The boy near the window gave Marcus a thumbs up. Another man, business suit and all, clapped slowly, then faster. Soon the entire restaurant echoed with applause. But Marcus didn't smile. He wasn't a man who sought attention or glory. He just wanted to eat, maybe rest, and then keep his promise to his daughter. Inside the warmth of the kitchen, the bustling noise of clanging pans and sizzling butter paused as Chef TJ led Marcus to a stool near the counter. The rest of the kitchen staff, all in various states of cooking and prep, noticed their boss's sudden change in demeanor and the quiet reverence he showed this unexpected guest. One by one, they stopped what they were doing and turned toward Marcus, some wiping their hands on aprons, others simply standing with utensils still in hand. "Everybody," TJ announced, clapping his hands once. "This is Sergeant Marcus Jennings. He saved my life on a rainy night in Kandahar back in 2009. A hush fell over the kitchen. TJ looked back at Marcus, who seemed uncomfortable with the attention. "You don't have to do this," Marcus muttered. "Yes, I do," TJ said, his voice softer now, "because too many of us come back and fade into the shadows, not today." Turning to the line cook beside him, he barked, "Andre, prep the duck confit. Get the good bottle of red, and don't cut corners. We're doing this right." The team sprang into action, their energy different now. They weren't just preparing another order, they were preparing a tribute. Marcus watched it unfold in quiet awe. For years he had scraped together meals from trash bins, soup kitchens, and discount gas station food. Now, for the first time in what felt like forever, people were cooking for him, not out of charity, but respect. TJ began to dice vegetables with surgical precision, telling the others where to find the best truffle oil, how to sear the duck just right, and why this dish needed to be perfect. As he worked, someone handed Marcus a cup of warm soup. He took a sip, potato leek, and it nearly brought tears to his eyes, not because of the taste, but because someone had cared enough to offer it without suspicion or pity. The young pastry chef, a shy girl named Leela, stepped forward, clutching a plate of eclairs. "Sir, I've never met a real soldier before," she said quietly. "Thank you for everything you did." Marcus nodded, humbled. "You don't have to call me sir. I'm just Marcus, but you're not just anything," Leela replied. "You're someone who gave up everything for people like me." Those words struck deep. More staff came forward. Busboys, sous chefs, dishwashers. One of them, a man with a thick Guatemalan accent, shared that his brother had also served in the military and never made it home. Another worker from the prep team said her father had been a Vietnam veteran, and seeing Marcus reminded her of how he used to sit silently on the porch for hours, just watching the wind in the trees. The kitchen, normally a place of urgency and orders, turned into a sanctuary. Marcus began to speak, softly at first, but with growing clarity. He told them about boot camp, the freezing nights in Afghanistan, the friendships he formed and the ones he lost. He told them about the mission that changed everything, the ambush where his unit was surrounded, and how TJ had been pinned under debris after an explosion. Despite being wounded himself, Marcus had dragged TJ out under gunfire through a trench of blood and sand. When he finished recounting the story, there was silence again, not awkward silence, but respectful, sobering quiet. Even the flames from the burners seemed to settle. TJ put the final touches on the dish and placed it gently before Marcus. A golden, crusted duck breast, tender and aromatic, laid beside a delicate serving of garlic mashed potatoes, haricots verts, and a dash of black truffle glaze. "I know it's just food," TJ said, "but this is my salute." Back in the dining room, the atmosphere was shifting. Word had started to spread through the restaurant. The curious glances from earlier were now tinged with regret. Conversations among diners shifted from judgment to confusion, then to guilt. Whispers turned into hushed discussions. "That guy, he's a veteran," one woman asked her friend. "I think the chef said he saved his life in combat." Another man said, setting down his wine glass. A couple near the entrance, who had been the first to sneer and pull away when Marcus walked in, now exchanged embarrassed glances. The young boy who had smiled at Marcus earlier looked up at his mom and asked, why did everyone look so scared when he came in? His mother blinked, unsure of how to answer. "People make mistakes, sweetheart," she said after a moment. "Sometimes we judge people before we know their story." The maitre d', Andre, stood quietly by the bar, his hands folded tightly. His earlier attempt to push Marcus out of the restaurant now weighed on him like an anchor. He watched as guests who had previously avoided eye contact now looked toward the kitchen with expressions of reverence and guilt. One couple rose from their table and approached the bar. "We'd like to pay for his meal," the man said. Andre hesitated. "The chef's already taking care of it." "Well then, we want to donate to something, anything, a veterans organization, whatever he needs." Soon more people began to follow. A middle-aged woman who had initially clutched her pearls at the sight of Marcus now approached Andre and quietly said, "I want to apologize. I made assumptions I shouldn't have." Another man, a well-dressed banker, approached a group near the bar. "That guy walked into gunfire to save someone, and I couldn't even handle him walking into a restaurant." The realization rippled through the room like a wake-up call. Everyone had seen Marcus's appearance and made snap decisions. But now, knowing even a sliver of his truth, they couldn't help but reflect on their own actions and biases. The boy near the window stood on his chair and clapped loudly, his small hands echoing in the space. Others slowly joined in. Soon the entire restaurant erupted into applause, not for performance, not for show, but for a man who had carried his sacrifices in silence for far too long. Yet Marcus wasn't there to witness it. He was still in the kitchen, finishing the best meal he'd tasted in years, unaware that beyond those swinging kitchen doors, An entire room of strangers had begun to rediscover their humanity because of him. Outside the restaurant, a soft drizzle had begun to fall, the glow of the evening lights casting a golden shimmer on the wet pavement. A white van rolled to a stop near the entrance, marked with the familiar red and blue logo of Channel 8 News. The side door slid open quickly, and a cameraman stepped out, hoisting a shoulder-mounted rig. Behind him, reporter Lexi Morales emerged, tucking a strand of damp hair behind her ear as she scanned the scene. They hadn't planned to be here tonight. A viewer tip had come in not long ago. A viral tweet from a customer inside the restaurant had caught their attention. It mentioned a homeless veteran being honored by a head chef who he once saved during combat. The tweet had been retweeted thousands of times in just under an hour, and it set off alarms in the newsroom. Lexi knew it was a human interest story with real weight. As the news crew entered the restaurant, a few patrons turned their heads, curious. The maitre d', still a bit flustered from the earlier drama, greeted them with a surprised expression. Lexi quickly explained the situation and asked if they could speak to the chef and the veteran. Inside the kitchen, TJ looked up from where he stood beside Marcus, who had just taken another bite of duck confit. His eyes narrowed as he saw the news crew's equipment. "We didn't call the media," he said flatly. "I know," Alexei said gently, "but your story's out. Someone in the dining room shared what happened. People are talking. We just want to tell it right." Marcus looked up, fork paused midair. "I don't know if I want to be on TV." Lexi crouched slightly to his level. "Mr. Jennings, people need to hear stories like yours. Not for sympathy, but for truth. Too many don't understand what happens when someone gives everything for their country and comes back to nothing." TJ placed a reassuring hand on Marcus's shoulder. "It's your call, man. I'm with you either way." After a moment's pause, Marcus gave a slow nod. Lexi signaled the cameraman, and the red light blinked on. They began by filming the kitchen, the dish that TJ had prepared with such precision, the way the staff stood respectfully around Marcus. Lexi narrated softly as the camera panned over the steaming plate of duck, the glistening vegetables, and the quiet dignity in Marcus's posture. When the camera focused on Marcus, Lexi asked, "Can you tell us what it means to be here tonight?" Marcus shifted slightly in his seat, looking straight into the lens. His voice was steady but raw. "For years I've been invisible. People cross the street to avoid me. They see the beard, the dirty clothes, and think I'm dangerous or broken. But today, someone saw me for who I really am." He paused, glancing over at TJ, whose eyes shimmered. "He didn't owe me anything. I didn't save him because I expected a favor in return. I did it because that's what brothers do. We watch each other's backs." The words seemed to hang in the air. In the dining room, the feed from the news crew played silently on a tablet a waiter brought out. Guests leaned in, watching as the scene unfolded in real time. Lexi continued her interview, asking Marcus about his time in the military, his return to civilian life, and the struggles he faced once the uniform came off. He spoke of VA backlogs, denied claims, nights in shelters, the haunting dreams, and the aching silence of being forgotten. As the story reached more people online, the restaurant's phone started to ring with inquiries from news affiliates, military support organizations, and individuals wanting to help. The staff couldn't keep up with the influx. The scene had transformed. What started as a moment of compassion between two old soldiers had become a ripple in the water, reaching further than anyone expected. Marcus's story, raw and unfiltered, had become a spark igniting a broader conversation. The camera kept rolling as Lexi offered a final question. "What would you like people to understand about veterans like you?" Marcus thought carefully. "That we're not broken, we're just tired. We've carried weight most folks never see, but we still matter. We're still worth the same respect we had in uniform." As the camera crew packed up and Lexi thanked the staff for their time, TJ motioned for everyone in the kitchen to gather around again. There was a sense of anticipation now, a kind of respectful silence as if something important was about to be said. TJ looked at Marcus, then back at the others. "Y'all know I've run this kitchen a long time. He began, but today this place became something else. It became a stage for truth, and I think it's time we did more with it than just cook meals. He turned to Marcus. You saved my life. That's something I can never repay, but maybe we can build something together. Marcus raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? TJ smiled. I want you on my team, not as a dishwasher, not as a cook, unless you want that. I want you as a consultant, someone who knows what it's like out there. Someone who can help this place become a beacon for veterans. We'll start a program, hire more vets, feed the ones on the street, partner with shelters. You'll lead the effort. I'll cover your housing, your meals, and your salary. You'll have an office upstairs. You won't be invisible here, brother. For a long moment, Marcus didn't speak. His hands trembled slightly at his sides. Then he looked around the kitchen at the faces watching him. Some young, some older, some smiling, others teary-eyed. And for the first time in years he saw not pity or fear, but recognition, acknowledgment. The staff erupted into applause, cheers bouncing off the stainless steel walls. One of the dishwashers who had served in Iraq himself came over and clasped Marcus's hand. Welcome to the team, man. Leela handed him a small white chef's apron, freshly folded, with his name embroidered in blue thread. You don't have to wear it, she said, but we wanted you to have it. Marcus held the apron in his hands, the thread soft against his calloused fingers. It wasn't just a piece of cloth. It was a symbol, a bridge between the battlefield and this new place of purpose. By morning, the footage of Marcus being honored had racked up millions of views. Shared by celebrities, veterans groups, and ordinary citizens alike, it struck a chord with people from all walks of life. Comments flooded in, offers of help, job opportunities, housing, even letters from children thanking Marcus for his service. Hashtags like #HonorOurVeterans and #MarcusMatters began trending. Online donations poured in, not just for Marcus, but for the restaurant's new veteran initiative. The story had gone beyond one man. It became a nationwide reminder of forgotten heroes and the power of simple acts of recognition. Just 2 days later, a black SUV pulled up outside the restaurant, and out stepped General Howard Davis in full dress uniform. Inside, the crowd hushed as he entered and approached Marcus. With precision and dignity, the general saluted him before shaking his hand. Marcus stood stunned as the general praised his courage and acknowledged the years of silent suffering he endured. Inspired by Marcus's story and the overwhelming public support, TJ and his team established a special evening each week dedicated to serving homeless and struggling veterans. Every Thursday night, the restaurant reserved its main dining area exclusively for veterans, transforming the space into a sanctuary of dignity and care. Local businesses began donating supplies, and volunteers lined up to serve, greet, and listen. Marcus took the lead, welcoming each guest with a firm handshake and warm smile, making sure every person who walked in felt seen, respected, and fed, not just with food, but with humanity. With encouragement from TJ and the community, Marcus began accepting invitations to speak publicly. At schools, he stood before died students, weaving together tales of heroism, heartbreak, and healing. At community centers, he spoke to families and young adults about the unseen battles veterans face when they return home. And there you have it. What began as one man's quiet entry into a restaurant ended up shaking the conscience of a nation. From a gourmet plate to a viral wave, from a silent hero to a national voice, Marcus reminded the world that heroes don't disappear. They just wait for someone to see them again. At a one-story teller, we bring you stories that aren't just heard. They're felt. Subscribe for more powerful tales that wake the soul and honor the forgotten.